Hey everyone, welcome back to Brian's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail. I hope everyone is having a good week. In today's video, we are going to be discussing two separate disappearances. The first is a hiking disappearance that happened last year in 2022. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about the recent disappearance of the submarine and that tragedy and some of the events surrounding it, because it's something that a lot of you reached out to me and asked me to cover on the channel. First, we're going to be talking about the disappearance of Quang Trong Than. He was 66 years old at the time. This was back in August of 2022, so just last summer. He was hiking up in the Inyo National Forest. These are some pictures. More specifically, he was hiking to the summit of Split Mountain. This is sort of looking out at Split Mountain. This was not that far from where he lived. Like I said, he's from Newport Beach, which is a suburb area of Los Angeles. He had gone out to do this hike, which was only supposed to be a day hike, with two of his friends. They didn't bring any overnight gear or anything really besides what you would need for a day hike, some food, some water bottles, things like that. Tan is an Asian male. He's roughly 5 foot 2 inches tall. He's 145 pounds, gray hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing this teal colored long sleeve shirt seen here with a red backpack and a gray hat. He was last seen on August 21st, 2022 between 3 and 4 p.m. near the peak of Split Mountain, which is on the Sierra Nevada crest, on the boundary between the national park and the national forest. We're not exactly sure how these events all came together, because according to his friends, they didn't really have a set plan, and this is a very difficult hike. At the base of the peak where he was last seen is 13,200 feet. According to weather reports and various witness statements on that particular day and then subsequent days, it was extremely hot. One of his friends, after they got separated from Quang that day, according to his testimony, waited around for roughly 2 hours. However, another one of his friends reported that Quang had passed him and kind of waved the friends on, saying sort of like, "I'll just meet you down there," or "meet you ahead." That was the last time anyone saw Quang. Unfortunately, he was not reported missing until the following day, August 22nd, where the California Highway Patrol immediately began their search and rescue efforts using quote-unquote high-powered optics, and they also brought in various Inyo County search and rescue members who interviewed the rest of the hikers that were with Quang that day. Unfortunately, this did not yield any results at the time. Then they brought in the Tulare County Search and Rescue, which has a special drone operation. They have these absolutely just amazing drones. I'll show you a picture of one of them here. They have awesome capabilities. They brought them in with, of course, the special pilots that are able to navigate these drones through very, very difficult terrain, to look under ledges and things of that nature. They also brought in more ground teams, search in various places like under Mather Pass, the various drainages, because in a lot of this area there's these various drainages or small lakes. Here's one of the pilots navigating the drone during this search and rescue operation. Here's what I mean by one of the drainages or small lakes that sort of surround all these different areas in and around the park. At the same time, Kings Canyon National Park Search and Rescue, Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park Search and Rescue brought in helicopters. They were also searching the area simultaneously for Quang. Unfortunately, none of these efforts yielded any results. During the search, various search and rescue members interviewed other hikers, and they described that during their descension of Split Mountain, the trail sort of led them towards the wrong gully, which, according to Mr. Quang's friends, this also happened to them. Apparently had also been hiking in and around the Red Lake trailhead, which is right here. Most of the trails in and around this area are considered very difficult. It's also gets very hot if you don't bring enough water, or if you don't have a SATCOM device, which I always highly recommend to anyone, whatever your skill level is, because in most of these areas there's no cell reception. During this search, they utilized everything from the ground search and rescue, the aerial search and rescue. They had the infrared flights, canine search teams. They had closed down some of the trails. There was over a dozen different agencies helping with the search and rescue for Quang. Unfortunately, after 15 days of searching day and night, they just had to start scaling back the search. At one point, one of the national park employees came forward and he said that he had climbed Split Mountain earlier in the year. He had encountered this, what he called a large hole with a massive unstable rocks at the top of it. And what he says was that if someone were to fall into it, it would be impossible to see them, ever find them. So it's theorized that they were not able to find Quang because he possibly fell into the bottom of this chute or hole, whatever you want to call it. Again, this is just a theory. The fact remains, though, he has never been found, and no trace of his gear or any other clues have ever been found. Both the authorities and his family surmised, though, that he most likely lost his life somewhere on the mountain, whether it was falling in that giant chute that the other man spoke of. It's impossible to say, and I'm sure the family would like that closure to be able to lay their loved one to rest if in fact he did die on the mountain that day. My thoughts and prayers go out to their whole family, all their loved ones, everybody that knew and loved Mr. Quang, and all the people that tried to help bring him home. Next, we're going to be discussing the disappearance and circumstances surrounding the OceanGate submersible. A lot of you had written and asked me to cover some of this, the details. First, I just want to send my condolences out to all the families that lost loved ones. It's just such a tragedy. Looking at all the details, and we'll discuss it, and I'd like to hear your feedback, but it seems like there were some safety issues that were just sort of looked over. This submersible had headed from St. John's. It was going out to hopefully explore the wreckage of the infamous RMS Titanic, which is located 900 miles east of Cape Cod and roughly 13,000 feet down, 12,500 some odd feet to be exact, over 2.5 miles. So it's very, very deep. There's no natural light. This is a picture of the submersible, which apparently they had Boeing and NASA work on the outer construction, the titanium cone, with the majority of the submersible being made of 4 to 5 inch carbon fiber. There is an interview that the CEO, Mr. Stockton, gave to David Pogue of CBS News this in the morning. I will leave a link to that in the description. It goes into detail the various aspects of the submersible. According to them, it was navigated solely with a video game controller. There was various things inside, like things from Camping World for the lights, various other things that raised safety precautions. According to the international guidelines, this was not a certified submersible. The only reason it was legally allowed to dive where it was because it was international waters. If it had been closer to the US or in other waters, it would not have been able to do this. According to professionals in the various news outlets, it's the only submersible that was able to carry 5 people down to the Titanic. It's roughly the size of a minivan, and personally I'm claustrophobic. I couldn't imagine being in that small tiny space. However, people would pay $250,000 for this opportunity. There was one story of a guy a couple of years back that mortgaged his home. According to professionals, the only time that it was safe to dive was late June through sometime in September. So many of the professionals looking at this said that they weren't sure why the submersible made the dive so early. And I'll have information in the description. I'm sure most of you have seen so much of this already. It was amazing, the international and interagency cooperation and how many people came together to help look for this submersible. It was scary, day after night, just thinking about these people trapped in this little capsule running out of air. However, after reading the reports, according to one of the Coast Guard officials and other professionals, it seemed that somehow there was a catastrophic loss of pressure and the whole thing imploded. According to the investigators and officials, if this is what happened, they wouldn't have felt a thing or even known what had happened. The way this sub worked, it was on this raft that would be taken out and then launched, sort of slid into the water. The only way it was able to guide itself down to the Titanic was from text messages from the mother ship. We all know that last Sunday is when it lost communication with the mothership, and then that's when the whole search and rescue got started. It was an hour and 45 minutes into the dive when they lost communication. Once the mothership realized there was a problem, they sent out word to the Coast Guard, sonar buoys, and other things were launched. As most of you are aware, a couple days ago, the Coast Guard identified a debris field. More investigations are going on. It's just such a tragic loss of life that many professionals believe could have been prevented had certain safety measures been fixed or taken care of. And I'll leave this up to your own opinion. I definitely would like to hear your opinions. In one of the interviews, the CEO was talking to David Pogue, and he said, quote, "If you don't want to have any fear, don't get out of bed or don't get in your car." And obviously I understand, we all do things that have risks, hiking, climbing. At the same time, these people all had to sign a waiver saying that it could result in injury or death. But my point is that there were a lot of safety concerns from other professionals in this arena that knew all about these submersibles. They all cautioned and warned him to get certifications to do things differently. To me, after reading this, I couldn't believe that they didn't even have a transponder net, and the only way that they could communicate was via text messaging. Many people were quoted in saying it's very similar to that of the sinking of the Titanic. The captain was warned over and over about icebergs, but he kept steaming ahead at full force. In this case, there was many warnings. In fact, back in 2018, there was even some lawsuits and other things brought against the company for safety regulations, and these were brought to the company by ex-employees. We do know at this time that the various remotely operated vehicles found several major debris fields. They found the Titan's cone about 1,600 feet away from the bow of the Titanic. They are using the U.S. Navy and other sonar type buoys, various equipment to try and find the remains, bring them back to their families so they can lay them to rest. It's going to be a very difficult operation, according to the Coast Guard and other authorities. It is amazing seeing the international and interagency cooperation and everybody in the world coming together to try and help figure out what happened and bring them back to their loved ones. My thoughts and prayers go out to everybody, all them that lost their lives, all their families, all their loved ones, all the search efforts, everybody who's worked so hard on finding this sub and now investigating what happened and trying to help give the family some closure. Thank you all for watching, as always. Special thank you to co.ag for providing the background music. Hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me to the end. I know I usually don't cover disappearances at sea, but a lot of you had written, like I said, and asked me to give you just an overview. I know there was a lot of things that I left out, but I just wanted to really just send my thoughts and prayers out to everybody that did lose loved ones and everybody that's working so hard on this investigation. It's just one of those things that's just a tragedy. Regarding Mr. Quang's disappearance, there's a lot of things that I find a little weird about it. If he did fall into this gaping chasm, as people sort of surmised, why wasn't there a scream or yell? There was a few other people in the area, including his hiking partners. If you fall down something that deep, apparently as deep as it is, you think that the person would yell or be screaming on the way down. However, there was nothing to be heard. Everybody else that was in the area was interviewed. Nobody reported seeing him or hearing or seeing anything out of the ordinary, so it's just one of those enduring mysteries. As always, thank you all for all your wonderful comments, your support. If anybody has any suggestions, my email is in the description for case suggestions or calendar submissions. If you'd like to leave a donation, I greatly appreciate anything. My Venmo, PayPal, all that info is always in the description. I can't thank you all enough. You've been so wonderful, and I just love all of your support and generosity and your feedback, your comments. I'd love to hear what your all plans are for the summer, if you're hiking, camping, doing something with a family, or whatever you may have planned for the outdoors or anything this summer. Definitely let me know. I'd love to hear from you all, and see you next time. Hey everyone, so a while back in my videos I was starting to do like a random trivia question or information at the beginning of each video. You guys didn't seem to really like that, so no, whatever it was. But what I thought I'd do is at the end of some videos just give you guys a news clip, something that I found to be just unbelievably funny or just out of this world. I just thought I'd share it with you. I put it at the end, so those of you that want to watch it, you can. Those of you that don't. Anyway, this guy working in an auto shop in Peachtree, Georgia, here in the United States, a couple summers ago, he was a good worker, working hard. He was laid off by this employer who is apparently just this really, really nasty guy, very difficult to work with. He was back owed $915, which this employer just refused to pay him, and this went back and forth for over a year. The employee was very kind about it. He wasn't aggressive. He just wanted to get his final paycheck. The employer apparently was very rude to him, blew him off. Then one morning, this employee wakes up. There's literally thousands and thousands of pennies all over his driveway, covered in grease, oil. There was also a note saying something to the means of, "Here's your final paycheck," then a bunch of explicitives. It took the guy hours and several days of just trying to get the pennies cleared up, put into wheelbarrows. He realized that this ex-employer, he had actually counted out the exact amount, $915, so it was the exact amount in pennies. And this guy was so petty and vindictive, took the time to cover them in grease and oil. The employee sued this guy. It went to court. Finally came to fruition just recently. He was awarded $19,697 in back wages, also another amount that totaled $39,934. So ultimately the employee had the last laugh. But can you imagine? I just thought this situation was just so unbelievable that this employer went to those lengths. So petty and vindictive. I'd definitely like to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on that one. Anyway, all right. See you guys next time. Hope you're having a great day, and thanks again for all your support.